Hey everybody, Morgan Wright here. Hey, probably wondering what the heck's going on. Well, I've got some new things happening, working with some new partners. We're actually going to be building a brand new channel. It's called Fight Crime TV. Don't go to the website yet, it's not built yet. We're just getting started. But the reason I wanted to get started was one of these cases that just came out that just infuriated me so much that I wanted to make sure that, hey, let's get to this right away. Many of you may not know, but just in case you don't, I'm a former detective, former state trooper, former police officer. So anytime a case involves a police officer who's been killed in the line of duty, it gets my attention. And this is one that got my attention. So what I did is I decided to create a little, maybe about a 4 to 5 part series that I'm going to be doing over these next few days. And it's going to involve the death of Officer Michael Connors, Richmond Bureau of Police. This happened on November 13th, 1979. So let me set the stage for you. Officer Connors is 23 years old, had been on the Richmond Bureau of Police for just about a year. Nice guy, nice kid. He's got a family. He's the oldest of, I think, about 6 or 7 kids. And so now he's this police officer. So imagine this. You're out there working. 2 o'clock in the morning, you see a car come around a corner, headlights off, going down the wrong way on a one-way street, and you pull this vehicle over. And as you approach this vehicle, Officer Connor gets shot. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 5 times. He gets shot the first time in the neck. Right here, takes him down. He ends up on the ground. They shoot him 4 more times. The killer shoots him 4 more times in the head. Shoots him here, 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 and then through the nose. Now, this is a person who's killed this officer, Officer Richard Connors. Now, let's think about this for a second. The reason I'm telling you this story is I want to ask your opinion when this is all over. This killer was convicted of an attempted murder as a juvenile, got out, had 2 convictions for armed robbery with a sawed-off shotgun, had many conduct violations while he was in prison, 6 years on parole, out on parole for only 3 months, when him and 3 friends rob a 7-Eleven, getting less than $20. And this officer right here, Officer Michael Connors, had no idea they had just robbed a 7-Eleven when he pulled them over. And the suspect in this case walks up before Officer Connor could even do anything, shoots him once through the neck as he's laying on the ground, and all 3 of his co-conspirators and the people involved in this all testified to the same thing. He shot him through the neck, he fell on the ground, and then as he stood over him, he fired 4 more shots. The shots were so terrible, they were so impactful, that when the medical examiner and when the crime scene technicians took a look at this, they found fragments of the bullet still embedded in the asphalt pavement. Now, why do I tell you this story? You think that somebody like this, by the way, guess what? In his trial, he was convicted, took 12 hours, only 12 hours, in a capital murder case. Looking through all of this evidence and all of these witnesses, took them only 12 hours to convict him of all the crimes, and took them 1 hour to impose the death penalty. So what happened? Here's what happened. One person who was interviewed during what they call voir dire, is where they look at the witnesses and they ask them questions to see, potential witnesses. Should we keep you? Should we not keep you? Well, every side has got what they call peremptory challenges. They can strike somebody without having to give a reason, or the court can say, hey, this person should be dismissed for cause. So one person who didn't hear a single fact of the case, because she wasn't dismissed by the judge and the defense had to use a peremptory challenge, this suspect gets a second trial. Got it. So he goes through the second trial, gets convicted again. This time he gets a life sentence. So you think life without parole, you think somebody who's killed a police officer, 2 prior convictions for armed robbery, and a conviction as a juvenile for attempted murder, probably should never be walking the streets again. And you would be wrong. And here's why you're wrong. This person, and I don't even want to mention that it is irrelevant what this person's name is. Here's what the Virginia Parole Commission did. They decided in their infinite wisdom, by the way, folks, you got to realize, allergies. You got to realize that in 2000, all the way up through 2019, this person, every time they came up for parole, was denied. They said, you're still a threat to society. You're still a risk. They got so many conduct violations in prison. You're not a good risk to release to the community. We deny your parole. Denied, 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 denied. Denied parole over and over and over again, as late as 2019. Except 2020, got a new man, born again. Whatever the case might be, the Virginia Parole Board, in their less than infinite wisdom, decided that, oh, we've looked at the facts of the case. Nobody has done the type of research on this case that we have, and only we are smart enough to figure out that the witness statements were inconsistent. And therefore, we're going to retry the case in our parole hearing, and we're going to give this convicted cop killer, two-time armed robber, and a previous conviction as a juvenile for attempted murder, and who was told as recently as 2019, in January of 2019, you're not a candidate for parole, don't even waste our time. And by the way, to get parole like that, it has to be a supermajority. Out of the 5 people, there have to be 4 votes. How did they get 4 votes to release this cop killer back into society? So that's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about this case. And so who I've got lined up and who got basically this whole thing started is Dana Schrod. She is executive director of the Virginia Association of Chiefs of Police. She's the one who helped get this whole thing started. Then I've got a couple other folks that I'm going to introduce you to. One was a student the night that Officer Connors was killed, driving back from a play, drove by the crime scene, saw everything that was going on, and then realized, wow, there's something going on here. This person ended up becoming a police officer themselves. But I'll tell you what, from a standpoint of knowing the case inside, and by the way, folks, I read the entire trial transcript over the weekend. I went through 4 volumes, over 800 pages of testimony, of material, of the evidence that they introduced, exhibits, everything. Took a look at this. And by the way, when this case was reversed on the first trial, it was not reversed on factual error. It was not reversed on misconduct. It was not reversed on new evidence being introduced. It was reversed on one person who never heard a single fact in the case, that was never impaneled on the jury. And because the defense had to use their peremptory challenges instead of the judge dismissing them for cause, they got a new trial. I get it. That's the way trials work. But we're going to get into these, quote, inconsistent. By the way, having been a detective and testifying in homicide trials, if I had testimony that was absolutely consistent with no variation, that'd be the first sign that something's wrong here. Testimony, witnesses are always inconsistent. But in the totality of circumstances, in the big picture, does enough of it line up to where you can say this person did it? So let me tell you, when we discuss this later and we start going through this, here's some things you're going to hear. All 3 people inside the car very clearly said, this was the guy who did it. This is the guy who shot him. And you think, well, those 3 guys are going to, dump on him. Well, hold on before you hear all the evidence. Let's find out. And you're going to hear that all of these guys were arrested at different times. There was no way for them to get together and said, hey, let's frame this dude. The other thing you're going to hear from is his girlfriend, the convicted killer's girlfriend, who was also charged with being an accessory after the fact because for 3 days, this killer was hiding with her. She went down on a Thursday night. Officer Connors is killed on a Tuesday morning. She goes down on a Thursday night, down to the police station to talk with him, says she doesn't know where this guy is. The convicted killer tells her, well, it was either him or me, and it was all over $20. That information had not been released to the public. Nobody knew how much money, how little or how much money had been taken. That was what they called their holdback information. The dude's own girlfriend gives him up. So now you've got all of these folks saying he's the one who did it. He gets his trial again. I get it. He gets convicted again a second time. Appeals, guess what? No problem with the evidence. No problem with the facts. No problem with the witnesses. Nothing. They all hang their hat on the first time was, well, we didn't get this peremptory challenge. So let's move forward. So where does this take us? This takes us right now is that this person's parole now has been delayed until May 11th. Enough has been raised. You've got all the major police organizations involved, the major county sheriff's organizations involved. You're getting letters of support from all these different folks. But I have to ask you folks out there, especially if you're in Virginia, let me ask you this question. Do you sleep safer at night knowing that a convicted cop killer, somebody who on the approach of a police officer took out a gun and shot them, not only once in the neck, but 4 more times while they were laying on the pavement, shot and killed that person, that the victim's family was never notified that they were being released, nor the Commonwealth's attorney, and this is not the first time. We'll give you information about other cases where this has happened. But more importantly, folks, that's one of the people we're going to talk. We're going to talk to Dana. We're going to talk to a current police officer who was a student at the time who drove by the crime scene. The other person we're lining up we're going to talk to, and folks, this is going to be the biggest shocker of all, was a police officer who 7 years before this was shot in the face in a case that at that time was not solved. And when the killer of Officer Connors was arrested, he looks at the picture and says, that's the guy that shot me. And the Commonwealth's attorney at that time said, well, we're not going to file the case because there's no way this guy is getting out of prison. He was sentenced to death. He'll never see the light of day again until, guess what? This guy is going to see the light of day again. So now we have a police officer who, after being shot in the face, looked at this guy, says, this is the guy who shot me. And now, is there a case open? Not yet. We're going to see if we can't get this cold case down in Richmond opened back up and have them take a look at it. And then one of the other people we're going to bring in, we're working on getting them right now, is one of the original prosecutors in the trial, in the first trial that convicted this cop killer. So I think this is going to be a great story. But the problem about it is it involves the death of a police officer. That's something that's very personal to me. I've got friends on the wall. I know some of you out there in law enforcement got friends on the wall too. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to follow this case. I'm going to get these folks interviewed. And we're going to make sure that at the end of the day that somebody knows out there that we care whether or not a convicted cop killer who in cold blood not only shot but assassinated and tortured a police officer if you just I won't show you the crime scene photos or the autopsy photos because I don't do that shock value kind of stuff. You've already seen this one right here. Here is the diagram from the pathologist who shows where the shots went in. Here on the right side of the face, here, and then one through the nose. Folks, you don't need to see any more. The diagram is all you need to see, but I will tell you, you saw what I've seen, if you saw what these other folks seen, we'll show you some pictures of the actual crime scene where the police car is, showing you the flashlight, the bullets embedded in the ground. When you see all of this kind of stuff, you're going to go, how is this guy allowed to walk the street? No plan for what he's going to do when he gets out. No victim notification. No Commonwealth's attorney notification. And this isn't the first case this has happened on. So that's what we're going to follow. So if you guys will stick with us, and we're working on this new platform. So I've got this streaming right now to Twitter, to YouTube, and to Facebook. We're going to be putting more information out there, more cases out there, and you're going to see the types and the quality of video and the productions we do go up. Right now, obviously working in secret undisclosed location, my home office here. But what we're going to do is we've got some really great things that we're working on. I got some really great guys, folks that used to be tied to America's Most Wanted, folks that were with the Travel Channel, previous crime shows, previous cases you've all have heard about. We're now going to start be putting together more episodes around cases, a unique view on them, a different perspective, what we see. But this is one case I wanted to start with. Didn't want to wait, didn't want all the fancy stuff. I just wanted to get started with this case right now because this involves one of the most heinous acts, which is the killing of a police officer. The thin blue line, the thing that stands between order and chaos in a civilized society. And if this person is allowed back out on the streets, somebody who in 2019 was told, you're not fit for parole, you're not fit to be out on the community, you're telling me 1 year later, all of a sudden, the clouds have parted, the light has shone down on this person, and now all of a sudden they're a candidate for parole? I think not, my friend, and I think we're going to explore that, and I'm going to do whatever I can within my power. Some of you know I do a lot of stuff with the media, do a lot of stuff with some national news shows like Fox, SiriusXM. So I plan on doing whatever I can to get the visibility. Again, it's not about politics. If you guys are thinking this is political, forget it. We're not going that route. This is not about R's or D's. This is about, do you feel safe? Do you feel safer today knowing that on May 11th, a convicted cop killer who shot and killed a police officer by shooting him once in the neck, and as he's laying on the ground, bending over with, and the testimony of the forensic pathologist and the firearms expert will tell you that the killer was within inches of the police officer's face when he put 4 more rounds through him while he laid on the ground. If you feel safer sleeping in your bed tonight knowing that this person is in society, you can stop viewing this channel right now. I'll never bother you again. But if you're like me and you want some answers and you want some accountability, then this is a place to be. So we're going to get these other episodes lined up. I'm going to introduce you to some people who've been following these cases since 1979, and hopefully we'll get to the original prosecutor. We'll talk to the police officer who was shot in the face 7 years before and says this is the guy who did it, and we're going to find out, will they be opening up this case again? All right, so stay tuned. Morgan Wright, you know me, you know you cut me, I bleed blue, folks. What I'm here to do is make sure is that we do the right thing, that we hold people accountable, but more importantly, I want you to understand very clearly, I will do everything within my power to make sure that this convicted cop killer, this assassin, does not make it back out on the streets of Virginia again. All right? So stay tuned. Watch for tomorrow. I'll send out some more notifications tomorrow and let you know what's happening. But until then, stay safe. Remember, every case matters. Every person matters. And we're going to get this thing solved.